Erin, you're a conductor, a soprano, a voice teacher. You work with corporations as a voice specialist. You're an author and public speaker. And you've participated around the world in international events, bringing together cultures through music, taking on incredible divisions between cultures as well with the power of music. But many people may recognize Erin Guinup as the founding executive and artistic director of the Tacoma Refugee Choir. The choir's performed around the region. You've been at political and cultural events. You've been covered on the TV and newspapers, and you even participated in TEDx Seattle with the choir and talked about the power of music to bring people together. All of this is so much a part of your life. Music is so deeply part of what you do. How did you first get started with music?
Well, I have always loved it. My mom always sang in choirs, and we would sing together at church and as a family at holidays. But it might surprise you that I actually wasn't that good at it. I could sing in tune, but I didn't have a very memorable voice, and I wasn't really selected for solos, but I did love to sing. And when I was 12 years old, I was super socially awkward. I just really could not figure it out. And as a result, I was bullied pretty heavily. The choir room was quite literally one of the only places I felt safe at school. It was a place where I felt accepted and where I felt like I wasn't this total dork who couldn't figure out how to make a friend. So as we sang together in choir, I felt like I gained confidence and I learned how to belong. And I continued singing into high school, and by my senior year, I decided I wanted to be a music teacher, just like the people who had touched my lives. But senior year is awfully late to start getting serious about studying music. I started taking voice lessons. I had a job, and so I paid for my own voice lessons because my family just didn't have the means to pay for that. And I found a piano teacher who would let me mop her floors in exchange for piano lessons. My dad pulled me aside one day and he said, "Erin, I know you love music, but you're also very smart." And he said, "You should go to medical school. You could heal people and you could really make a difference. Can you do that with music?" I loved my dad, and I really thought about that question. It really impacted me. So I thought about going to medical school, and I thought about doing lots of other things, but ultimately music kept calling me. And besides, what I really wanted was to be a mom. I wanted to have at least 5 kids, maybe 7, and I really just wanted to be family focused and have that. So why would I spend 10 years in school and thousands in student loans to give it up to raise a family? I was fortunate to move from California up to the University of Puget Sound here in Tacoma, yay, and when I was in college, I found my voice. I learned how to work hard and that I could develop this latent strength into something that was really impactful. And so I started making plans. I was going to go to Vienna and pursue this career in opera performance, and it seemed like I might actually be able to make it. I got a lot of encouragement. And then I met Ken and fell head over heels in love with this man. It was like an MGM movie. I'm serious. Like, I kissed him and I melted down the door. I was like, oh. I was just so in love with him, and he and I wanted the same things in life. We wanted a large family. We really wanted a life founded in faith and love and learning and service and music. And we would dream up all these plans about how we were going to really make a difference together. And so after college, we decided to start our family. And as we approached the turn of the century, we had 2 kids, and life seemed to be, clicking along fairly much according to plan. Now, 6 months after our daughter was born, Ken started to complain about a pain in his shoulder. A few months later, he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at age 30. And I thought arthritis was something you take a couple of Tylenol and, you go on with life. But he had a rather aggressive form, and it was completely debilitating for him. The pain was completely overwhelming for him. And pain changes people. I came to our room one day to ask him to come to dinner, and he had a gun in his mouth. A couple of weeks later, I come home with my kids and find a note on the door to go to the hospital. And when I arrived, the doctors were pumping his stomach after swallowing a whole bottle of Tylenol, and they weren't sure if they had gotten to him in time. But he lived. And he promised never to attempt his life again. But the pain was still there, and it was still overwhelming for him. We got a brief moment of relief. They started him on this medication, and it looked like, okay, now things are going to get better. But then things got much worse. He developed a complication out of that called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyradicular neuropathy, which is as complex as that name. Within 2 weeks, he went from walking to being completely immobilized and being confined in an electric wheelchair. And then it started attacking his vital organs, and his lung function was down to 30%. After 2 years of aggressive chemo and other intense treatments, the doctors didn't know what else to do. And Ken said, "I'm done fighting." And we took him home, and they gave him about a year to live. Here I was, 27 years old. I had 2 small children, a husband who needed care, no family nearby, no job, and all I had was a music degree. What was I supposed to do with a music degree in this situation? People would send well-meaning condolences, but they really didn't know what to say. What do you say? Your life is falling apart. Good luck. And I felt really isolated and alone. I started teaching voice lessons from home because it gave me the flexibility of being able to care for my kids and check in on with my husband. And it really gave me a real sense of satisfaction to be able to do something productive. I would teach a bunch of students, and then I'd pray with my family and tuck my kids in at night and sing them lullabies. And then I would go upstairs to my piano, and I would sing songs about death, as if to stare death in the face and say that I could survive this trial. I could survive being a young widow. 5 years later, he was still alive. So we decided to go back to the doctor and see if they could do anything to make his life any more bearable. And they said there was a new medication that had been approved and that we should try it. Of course, it was very expensive, $4,000 a month. I was making half that at that point, and we had to get Congressman Norm Dix involved to help us get it approved by the insurance. While we're waiting for this approval process, I had agreed to direct an opera called Amal and the Night Visitors. And it's a Christmas opera that stars a young crippled boy who gives his crutch to the Christ child, and then he is healed. And in a case of art imitating life or life imitating art, during that production, my husband received that medication, and he lifted his arms again for the first time in 5 years. And then he took his first steps. And this was completely life-changing for us, because now I didn't have to care for him, and we could start making plans again. We were like, okay, life is going to be all good now. And of course, his health still had a lot of complications. It was not a complete cure, but it did restore his mobility, and that changed a lot of things for us. So we started making plans, and part of that was to expand our family again. I still longed for those children that I wanted in our home. And we couldn't have any more children by birth because of the chemo. And so we decided we would do foster adopt. And we were going through the process, and I had my heart set on this 10-year-old Mexican boy. It's like, that's who we want to bring to our home. And then the social worker in the last interview expressed concerns about my husband's continuing health instability. And as I protested and said, we just have so much love to give, He said, maybe you should divorce your husband if you want to adopt so badly. I wasn't going to divorce my husband, and I was completely devastated. I wasn't going to have any more children. And honestly, I didn't know how it was going to go on. In the previous 3 years, I conducted this Easter oratorio at church called Lamb of God. It features an 80-voice choir and orchestra, and I really love this piece. But I told the leaders at church, I can't do it this year. I didn't know how to make music when my heart was so broken. But they somehow convinced me to do it. They just wouldn't let me out of it. And so I did it. And I'm so glad I did, because in the process of doing that production, my faith was restored and more healing of that broken heart came than I could have possibly imagined. And after that production, a woman came up to me and she had expressed how much she was moved by the production. And then she says, oh, so this is your baby now, right? This is your baby. Those weird words pierced my heart. And in that moment, I knew that things were going to be okay. That this gift of music that I'd been given was the place where I was supposed to put all the love that I had to give. I knew that music could make an impact on other people like it had made for me when I was 12 years old and helped me feel safe. And I knew that music could help people to gain a sense of belonging like I did as a teenager. And that music could help people to find their voice and figure out how to make a difference like it did when I was a college student. And like when I was a young adult, to dream about possibilities and to do all sorts of, to free myself from what could happen and believe that things could happen. And like when death hung over our family like a cloud, I knew that music could bring comfort. And like when my heart was broken, I knew that music could help restore faith and to help us find the courage to press on when it seems impossible to do so. I feel so fortunate because I've seen this impact over and over again with students and with choirs that I've worked with. And even my husband, who lost his ability to sing from the chemo and the ability to play his instruments from the arthritis, he's found the music kept calling him, and he's recently taken up drumming. Cool. The neuroscience of singing is just starting to figure out how music affects us. But what we do know is that music affects our biochemistry. It changes, our body releases a host of neurochemicals like dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin when we sing. And I realized recently that isn't that what medicine does? Change our biochemistry to help our bodies heal? Isn't it that what music does? And in a time when there's so many people in the world hurting and lonely and scared and hopeless, it seems to me that music and its power to heal and connect people is perhaps needed now more than any other time. A couple of years ago, I was really moved by the refugee crisis, and I didn't feel like I could do anything about what was happening in Europe or in other countries. But I did realize that I wasn't powerless to help people and refugees that are resettled in our community feel safe and welcomed. And so we started the choir, and it's been a really rewarding experience. It's also been excruciatingly difficult. When I started, I didn't have the tools I needed to build this. I'd never done fundraising. I didn't know anything about board governance or grant writing, and I didn't even know any refugees at that point. And I didn't know people who could help us to make this happen. And it's been scary. I've gotten super emotional about this year because it's hard. The first time one of our refugees said that the choir was like their family and that I was like a mother to them, I knew it was worth pushing through those points where it feels like you're not sure how it's going to work out. In our first few years, we've been able to reach over 300 people at a rehearsal and had people from 37 countries at a rehearsal. It's been remarkable. So many of them have become like family to me. And when we rehearse on Tuesdays, it doesn't matter what kind of day we've had. Like, people will come in trudging in like, oh, this was my week, and barely coming in, but by the end, we're all so joyful and happy. It's because music heals us, and it helps us to feel strong again, and it binds us together. Through the choir, we've had the opportunity to mourn with people who are unable to be reunited with their families, or unable to return to their home country for a mother's funeral. We've been able to lift one another, and we've been able to help connect with people to, study for a test or write a paper, and also affirm that we will be a friend while they wait their deportation hearing. Most of all, it's just made us happy, and especially in light of all the negativity, it's helped me to see the world as not something that I'm powerless against, but that I have the power to live my life. No legislation, no politics, no rhetoric. It can change the way that I treat other people. I am in charge of that. And that as we sing together, we can come together and make each other stronger. Now, I'm not delusional in thinking that music can save the world, but this I know. Music changes people. And people change the world. So really, music can perhaps be the thing that we need at this time. And the great thing is that singing doesn't cost anything. Anybody can do it. And I mean anybody can do it. And perhaps that's the thing that we need to heal our hearts and our community.
Thank you, Erin. So now that you've talked and we've seen and heard so much about the power of music, do we get to sing a little bit?
Yeah, I think that'd be fabulous.
Great.
So we have a song today that some of our members of our refugee choir wrote. That one of our members was saying, we need something happier. And so I brought 3 members of the choir, 3 refugees, over to my house one afternoon, and we wrote this song. And Trésor John, he's a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, incredibly talented musician, and he's a star just waiting to be discovered. He's just really brilliant. But he usually sings the solos on this, so if you've heard the refugee choir, he's usually the one. It was written for his voice. But I'm going to sing it today. When we get to the chorus, I would love for you to join us. It's a pretty straightforward message. And the chorus is that everyone can love someone and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all need love. And the pre-chorus, which I didn't put up, but you're welcome to join in if you'd like, but it's Natalie Bajinha, she's one of our refugee members. This was her part. Sad stories can be rewritten. And as I was practicing this before today, I was thinking, gosh, that's so appropriate to tell at a storytelling festival, that no matter where we come from, no matter what kind of past we've been through, that we can be triumphant in that, and that we can still make a difference. No matter what our circumstances, we can make a difference. So I think we'll take it away. I'll sing the solos today and then join in when we get to the chorus. Yesterday is gone. A brighter day is here. Have somebody said stories can be rewritten where fear ends and hope begins. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. Everyone can love someone. We need each other. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all need love. When people change, the world is changed. We can make a difference when we give and love. 'Cause I've been loved and love changed my story. Sad stories can be rewritten where fear ends and love begins. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. Everyone can love someone. We need each other. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all need love. Here's the bridge. Love is pure, love is kind, love protects, love is blind. Love is pure, love is kind, love protects, love is blind. Love is pure, love is kind, love protects, love is blind. Love is pure, love is kind, love protects, love is blind. Love is blind. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. Everyone can love someone. We need each other. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. Everyone on your feet. Love someone, and everyone needs love. Everyone can love someone. We need each other. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. Everyone can love someone. We need each other. Everyone can love someone, and everyone needs love. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all need love. It doesn't matter where you're from. We all need love. I love it. Give someone a hug next to you.
Erin, thank you so much.